like to work through a thought exercise today, and I'd like you to envision in your mind a woman who's a mason or bricklayer who's laying down bricks to build a house. Now, create a very clear picture in your mind, because there might be a test later. Is this woman wearing something in particular? I hope. Is she got different kind of hair? What kind of color of bricks is she laying? Create a vivid picture in your mind of this woman. Now, what is the word for house in French? Maison? La maison? Exactly. So, you'll see where we're going with this in a second. My son James really wants to learn French. Or at least his parents really want him to learn French. There's lots of benefits to learning a different language. There's studies that show that if you learn a different language, you have a reduced chance of dementia. You have an ability to think on your feet, to think quickly, and to have a better memory. So there's lots of reasons for us to encourage our son James to learn another language. And I think the most important thing, and I think you'd all agree, is that we start early. If we start early, we will enable him to develop speech patterns, recognize speech patterns in French, and he'll be able to recognize those French words sooner and be able to develop his French as soon as possible. Now, myself and my wife, we're not really great at French. We know very little. She took a French class in high school, and I took no French classes. I have very little understanding of French, but luckily his mère, or grandma, is very fluent in French. She used to teach at a school, French immersion school, and his cousins are also in a French immersion school. So we try and interact with them as much as possible so that he can learn French words. But the other 95% of the time, unfortunately, he's stuck with numbskulls like me. So what can I do to learn French as fast as possible so that I can prepare him for French immersion school, which is going to be fast approaching in the next 3 to 4 years? Well, there's lots of different things that we can do, and I've been listening to music and YouTube videos, and I've downloaded the Duolingo app. If any of you have heard of Duolingo, I've been working through those, and it seems like with whatever method I try, I'm still stumbling on remembering words in French. And so I took a step back and thought, well, why don't I start to study memory techniques instead? And then I'll devote myself a little bit more into studying French. And so that's what I did. I read a book about memory techniques written by Ron White, and he wrote a book which is kind of a tacky cover, 30 Days to a Better Memory. And Ron White is a memory champion. He's had 2 USA championships, won, and he's the author, speaker. Teaches all these different methods for learning different things, remembering things, specifically also learning a new language. So what he taught me is that we think in images. We don't think in words. So anytime you're trying to learn a new word, you should associate the word with an image. And preferably, that image should be able to describe what the word's definition is or what the translation is in another language. And so that's what I started to do. I started to work through these thought exercises, thinking about images to create a connection between the French and English version of the words. And it started to work, but then I realized, oh crap, I have to remember that French has both feminine and masculine versions of it. And so I also had to incorporate that into my images. And so I did. So one example of this is to remember the word for apple in French. I simply thought of an apple in a woman's hand, or palm, and I tried to picture the woman's hand with like as many details as possible, red nail polish on her fingernails to realize that she is a she, it's a feminine quality. And the word for apple in French is la pomme. Exactly. So we have that association built. So you can use this exercise in pretty much any language, or if you're trying to learn a new word, such as discern, as we have in the board, we can use this same method. And just to test to see if it's working, let's see if you remember what the story was in the beginning. What is the French word for home?
La
le maçon. Mason, she's laying bricks, she's a mason. And she's a she, so we have an association with the feminine aspect, and so we don't have to remember two different items. What's the French word for apple? La pomme. Exactly. So, along with the French learning techniques that I'm using, as I described, and Duolingo and all these different things, I'm hoping that one day I'll be better at French so that I can one day keep up with my son. Thank you.